Good morning, guys. Make sure if you haven't already, go ahead and comment present on the video post for today. Remember that anytime I post the link and it's not streaming yet, it's because I'm waiting. I think you guys should know that by now. So let's go ahead and open Excel. Today's lesson, or even the assignment, is not a very difficult one. It's really basic. It's pretty much just to type out a bunch of lists of items. And I'll bring up the plan real quick. So today is day 4. And basically we're going to cover what is data validation. And we're going to just briefly discuss that. We're not going too in depth into that. The next thing we're going to do is to create a list in one of the sheets, and then we will use this list as a data source. Alright, that's fine, Darnell. So go ahead and open Excel. And if some of you guys are having trouble with the working with sheets on your cell phones, I would say don't worry too much about it. Just try and get it done if you can, and if you really can't, which I have students that said that they really just can't use it on the cell phone, and I understand because I've used it on the cell phone before. I would say maybe try and do the work but with a folder sheet or a typing sheet, and just basically draw out the tables that we create during these 2-week lessons. That way when you come back to school, you can go ahead and just do the assignments with the computer in the lab and save them, and then when we have lab times, you could just check your assignment real quick. That way I can just quickly give you a grade for that assessment, right? So at the very least, what you can do is practice it out by drawing it, maybe labeling sections of the paper by writing notes, and basically saying what we did. For example, if you're going to write out the schedule we did on paper on day 2, you can basically draw it out on a typing sheet or folder sheet, and then you could just draw arrows maybe from here or here pointing and say, alright, first thing we did was align everything to be centered, and then next thing you can put a note here on the column that says width is 25, row height is 35, and then label here, merge these cells, add borders. Basically you're doing the assignment but you're doing it manually on typing sheet. I know it kinda is completely different from Excel, but at the very least you have your notes ready so that when we get back to the lab, it's just 10 minutes of doing what you wrote down and your assignment should already be complete. Literally, they should only take 10 minutes once you know what you need to do, right? Yeah, that's if we get back to school, obviously, after the Easter break. But I want you guys to at least write it out, because at the same time when you write it out, you're still learning about it, right? We're still talking about formatting styles. It still pertains to Excel, just that we're not physically doing it in Excel yet. And that's only for those who can't use the Excel in their cell phones or on their tablets, right? Because I know how it is. I use the Google Sheets on my cell phone. I know it's really hard to get some work done quickly because everything is so small and jumbled up, and a lot of these options up here aren't even shown. You have to go and look for them. So at the very least, guys, just write it out, put the notes, basically editor's notes, that says, alright, we do this here, we do that there, these columns merge, and so forth, right? Alright, so for today, what we're gonna do is talk about data validation. And I really hope you guys have been watching these videos with a notebook in hand so that you could write down some of the notes that we've been basically on the styles that we've been doing. For example, if I ask you what cell wrap text does, I hope you guys should be able to answer me and explain to me what it does, more or less. And if I ask you how do you change the width of a column and the height of a row, I hope you guys can at least explain to me how we can do that. At the very least, the manual way, which is to select the line that separates two columns, and then once the line is selected, you should be able to manually adjust the width by dragging the mouse. So if you guys haven't been doing that, I hope you guys go back, watch the videos, and just write down notes as we go along. So for today, we cover what is data validation. Data validation is basically to ensure that when you're typing in information in a cell, that it's the information that the person wants you to put in. Remember that not everyone working on an Excel sheet or on a Google sheet is the owner of that Excel file. You know, a lot of times in businesses, Excel files get sent to other people, and other people have to go and input the information. And what the creators of the files usually do is they put a data validation which checks to see that, okay, make sure that whoever gets this file afterwards can only enter certain type of information on a certain cell, right? Because if you go and send this file to someone else and they start entering the wrong information, it will take some time before they send it back to you, and you notice, oh man, this person had the file for a whole day, and then now that I got it back on the next day, I noticed a lot of mistakes with their information. So data validation tries to minimize those things by setting a default, or setting a list of only allowable data to be entered in a cell. And we're gonna do that today in a brief manner. What I want you guys to do on sheet 1 is to rename it, and we're going to call this the food list. Alright, so basically what we're going to do is create a list of foods, and we're gonna organize them based on the time of day when we eat. What that means is basically breakfast, lunch, and dinner, right? The 3 times of the day that you eat. I prefer, Calvin, if you just use one or the other. Just stick to one, because if you jump from one to the next, then you'll notice you're gonna have to learn both Excel functions and Google Sheets functions. And if that's what you want, I mean, go ahead. You know, the more you learn, the better, right? Who am I to tell you not to learn more than one thing, right? So go ahead. If you want, do it like that. So what we're gonna do first is we're gonna increase the width of these columns here. Let's go 35, right? Basically for this assignment, we're just going to be working with columns A, B, and C, because on A we're going to use that to represent breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And then I'm just going to go ahead and give me about, let's say, 8 rows, and I'll adjust the row height to be about 25, like the other one. So we have our 3 times of the day when we eat food, which is on breakfast, lunch, and dinner. So basically we're just gonna go ahead and add different foods to this list. You don't have to have the same ones that I have, but if you want to just make it easier on yourself, you could copy what I have here. So some breakfast foods are like Johnny Cake. You have your breakfast burritos, even tacos. A lot of places sell tacos in the morning. You have eggs, right, with bread, maybe in the morning. Sometimes you got your bacon, beans. Sometimes you have waffles. And then let's end it off with fried jack, right? And for lunch, I know you guys sometimes have to eat fried chicken in school, maybe some fried rice, Um, what else? Rice and beans. Got your barbecue. Sometimes I see you guys eating pizza, wings, and what else do I see you guys eating? Burgers, right? And then for dinner, well, I know a lot of families that eat turkey and beans. Sometimes I eat that for dinner too. Again, sometimes rice and beans I see people eating for dinner. Sometimes, right? Sometimes I see people eating like white rice and chicken. Again, pizza, because sometimes people do eat pizza at night. Sometimes people do buy burgers at night. Sometimes people eat fried jack at night too. Pretty much lunch and dinner is similar, right, for us when we eat here in Belize. And the last thing I want to put is, let's see, what have I not included in this list already? Let's just put chow mein since we have a lot of items from Chinese restaurants, right? So this is just a basic list of foods that we eat at different times of the day. I'm gonna go ahead and center align everything as usual just so it looks nicer. I'm gonna go ahead and put bold settings for this first row here, because these are not the items, but these are actually the headers for the items below. Now we're not gonna be printing out this list, right? So I'm not gonna go ahead and put borders because we don't need to print this list out. What I want to show you guys is how to do a data validation cell. Alright, so basically, if on sheet 2 I'm gonna rename this to be my food schedule. So we are going to do a food schedule, but we're gonna finish this on the next day or the next class, right? Because on day 5 we're supposed to use the same food list from this lesson, and we're gonna create a sheet to insert a meal planner for the week. So last class we did a schedule for classes for the week. For this one, we're gonna do a schedule for the meals we'll be eating for the week. And again, this table will be a lot smaller because it's not like 6 subjects for the day, but it's only going to be 3 meals a day, right? Breakfast, lunch, dinner from Monday to Friday, right? I know we eat Saturday and Sunday as well, but this is more for those people that have to go to school, or maybe for parents that has to go to work and they cook their food, or they decide what to make during the week, right? So I'm not gonna do it on this sheet, right? I'm gonna save that for the next class. I just want to introduce to you how it's done. Alright, so here I want it to be that you can only enter food from breakfast, alright? Because if this is gonna be my breakfast cell down here, and I only want to select foods from breakfast, I don't want the user to go and accidentally put burgers, right? Because if the Excel file allows you to do it like this, that might be wrong, because burgers isn't a breakfast item, right? Yes, you will be able to watch the video after the live stream. As always, all my live streams are saved on YouTube after the live stream has ended. Alright? So if you have to, just go ahead and watch the video over. So we don't want the user to accidentally be putting in stuff in cells that is not supposed to be there, right? So what we'll do is we'll delete this, and you're gonna go ahead and click on the data tab here, and let me just look for it. Data validation. Is it in there? Is in the home tab? I think it's actually in the home tab. A minute. I kind of forgot where it was. Just give me a minute, guys. Did the last week. But in the meantime, if you guys have any questions on what we're doing, go ahead and ask it while I look for the data validation option. Oh, make I show it in sheets real quick too. Alright, well, for in Sheets, it's actually more straightforward to find. It's right here that says data validation. So I'm gonna go ahead and try to look for it again in Excel. Not even sure if it's in. Here it is. See, it's really small icon here. It's under data tools. That's why I forgot where it was, because it's such a small icon. But basically, you're gonna click on this little arrow here, and you're gonna select data validation. And it's a really small icon for you Excel users. So please pay attention here on the video. It's this one right here. So you go to the data tab, and it's this small little icon here with the check mark and the little stop looking sign there. Alright, so the height for the row is 25. No, let me go ahead and check for you guys. I think it's 35 actually it's 25. Yeah, so 25 for the height of the row. Increase cells in Google Sheets. I think there's no limit in terms of cells. If your Google Sheets look like it has limited cells, it's probably because the view or your screen is kind of zoomed in, right? So you need to try and zoom out or set the zoom of the browser you're using to be smaller, right? So let's go ahead and click on data validation. When we click data validation, a window like this will pop up, and basically it's gonna give you this validation criteria. It's telling us, all right, what is allowed to be placed in this cell now. For now, it will default to have any value, but we don't want to say any value, right? We don't want someone to put the wrong information in breakfast. So we're gonna select this arrow here, and we're gonna put list, because we have a list of allowable items up here, right? And then it will give you a next field here that says source. Instead of typing in the addresses, which you could go ahead and type in, right? But it's faster if you click on this little arrow here. When you click this arrow, it's gonna basically minimize the window, so it lets you select this cell. You don't have to minimize the window. If you have space here, you could just go ahead and click. Once you click on the first row, first cell, it's going to automatically put that cell address for you there. Alright, and if you notice the dollar signs there, that's the absolute reference. We're not gonna get into that right now. We'll get into that probably when we get back from the Easter holidays, if we do get back. But basically, we're not gonna cover that now. So I'm gonna go ahead and remove this. I'm gonna click on A2, but I'm not gonna let go. I'm gonna drag my mouse all the way down to 8, because this is my list, right? Notice now the source says equals, because it's calculating the range of the cells from A2 colon all the way to A8. For now, just ignore the dollar signs. We will get to that, but a little bit later, right? But that means absolute reference, right? It means we're taking A2 to A8 and nothing else. So when I click OK, notice a little arrow appears here now. And now, instead of having to type in the option, you click on the arrow, and now the user can just go ahead and make a selection from the list that we assigned it. We gave it a list. We said the list can only cover from A2 to A8, and now when you click on this arrow, you let the user select an option rather than going ahead and typing in something, right? So this is one way to ensure that the information they enter is the right information, or if not right, then at least the information that the person wanted you to enter. It's also a good way to quickly modify information as well. If, for example, breakfast, first thing you want to eat for this week is breakfast burritos, then you set that. And then you can go ahead and next week, when you're planning out your list, you can go and change up your meal plan as you go along. And if you want, you can go ahead and add more foods to your list, and then you just need to go ahead and set the data validation over again and basically remove this and extend it to cover additions made to the list. So you can see how you can quickly modify your schedule every week, right? This week we start with bacon and beans, and then we go ahead and eat some fried jack tomorrow, and then the next day we eat waffles, and then for the next week you don't want to go with that same order, you change it up, and basically it's just to click and then just change it for your schedule as you go along. Again, this is just one cell, so it doesn't really look that impressive, but if I go ahead and add data validation on of these cells and I do the same thing, allow, I won't allow any value because there's room for error there, right? Click on source, select from A2. I'm gonna include 9 now, even though it's not a real breakfast item, more foods, but it's just to give you an example, right? So all of these now should have the arrow, and you can basically plan out a meal plan once you structure the schedule out properly, right? Like how we made a proper structure with the classes, right? So if you imagine this was your schedule for the next 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 days, maybe the next week you want to change from eating so much eggs and bread to eating like tacos, for example. Maybe you don't want to cook eggs and buy bread. Maybe you want to buy tacos at the corner where the vendor is at. Or maybe the next day you don't want to eat waffles, then you basically just set up your schedule like that. So we're not going to complete the schedule this class. I just wanted to introduce you on how to set a list for your data validation, right? So I only see one person here so far. Alright, if anyone has any questions, you could go ahead and ask in the chat. I'll give you a minute. I guess I could actually use this minute here to show you how it's done here. So let's just quickly do a quick list here. Rice, chicken, fries. So this would be my list, right? And I'm gonna put the validation on this cell here. So data validation. For the size for cells, Calvin, remember you need to go ahead and you could either manually do it, like putting the arrow here and just adjusting it, or you right click on resize row if you're using sheets, right? And that's why I say it's better to stick with one app. If you're using Excel, stay with Excel, because then you might get confused. So I'm gonna go ahead and add this data validation here on B2. Notice it tells me which range it's on B2. If I wanted to apply it on multiple, it's gonna select multiple. But for now, let me go ahead, click on this data validation, right? So now it's selected B2 for me because I had to reselect data validation. Now it says criteria, kind of like the criteria that we had here, right? Validation criteria. Alright, if your Excel is 2010 and it only shows on one box, remember, go ahead and highlight multiple cells and then set in the criteria, alright? So for cell B2, it says list from our range. We click here and then we basically select our range just like we did in Excel. We click OK. Once that's done, you click save and the arrow should appear here and you select from the list that we have, alright? So that's how you do it using Google Sheets. I think if I try and enter something else, yeah, if I enter something that's not on the list, notice it puts a little red flag up there and say that the input must fall within the specified range. And because SDF is not part of this list, it tells you a little warning there, right? I think Excel should do the same thing. Once you put the input message or the error alert, I think it should give you a little warning sign. See, when I try to move away, it tells me this value does not match, right? So that's why we have data validation, basically, anyways, is to ensure that the right data is entered and nothing else can be entered. Yeah, so today, don't need to do this data validation part. Just have this list ready and just upload your list for me, alright? I'm interested to see what kind of foods you guys could come up with, alright? So once you have this Excel finished, you save it. Alright, today is assignment day 4. Put your name and assignments. Alright? Make sure you save it. Have this list ready so that next week we're gonna go ahead and complete the schedule on this sheet here. Alright? So remember to rename your sheets and create a list. Remember to center everything with center align and vertical middle align, and then make the first row bold for me. Alright? As usual, you don't have to finish this today, but I mean, this one is so simple. I think you should be able to get this done today, right? Remember what I said though, if you can't get something done on the day the assignment is given, simply submit it when you can, but try and submit it before the Easter break starts, right? Because that's when I'm gonna go ahead and check on all these assignments. Alright guys, that's it for today. I'm gonna end the stream. If you have any questions, send me an email or comment in the chat right here. Alright guys, have a good weekend. Enjoy your day. Bye.